we got to go back and talk about Deadpool. Valiant, what the hell do you mean? That movie came out last... I get it. Everything we knew about Deadpool and Wolverine was wrong. And we're going to talk about the original two films, give a little bit of a comparison here, but we've got to talk about this. This changes everything. And it explains a lot about the Disney earnings report in the fourth fiscal quarter of 24, the one that we covered just right at a year ago now. And everybody needs to pay attention. And why we saw the numbers that we did year over year reported just a couple of weeks ago this year when it came to content sales and licensing. Ladies and gentlemen, Deadpool and Wolverine cost over $500 million. I'm going to repeat this. Deadpool and Wolverine of 2024, Disney spent over $500 million to make that film. $500 million. In fact, as of right now, the numbers stand if we go back and we convert British pounds to US dollars on the day of release, which is typically when movie studios claim any type of conversion they would have to do. It was $525 million. And that was only through last year, meaning that if we know anything about Disney filings, that there are going to be more expenses amortized in the next 12 to 24 to 36 months. This is one of the most expensive movies ever produced. I genuinely do not know how in the holy hell this is the case. But let's talk about this. Christian Silt and Caroline Reed. Disney pockets a record 61 million British pounds sterling. Not US dollars, but British pounds. So add 25% to this. The real number here is about 75 million US dollars in film tax credits just from the UK on Deadpool and Wolverine. Disney pockets a record 61 million British pounds or 75 million US dollars of UK taxpayers' cash to make the Ryan Reynolds superhero movie. It's understood to be the largest sum ever handed to a movie production in a single year since the UK government introduced the filmmaking incentives back in 2007. The United Kingdom has come under fire after it emerged that a record 61 million British pounds of taxpayers' cash was handed to Disney last year to film the Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman superhero movie Deadpool and Wolverine in London, despite the studio making $3 billion of operating profit in 24. It is understood to be the largest sum ever handed to a movie production company in a single year since the government introduced the incentives to attract filmmakers in the UK in 07. The blockbuster payment would cover the cost of 802 GPs for a year, 4,227 hip operations, or 61 MRI scanners. Woo! $1 million a piece in the UK. It has attracted the Disney film tax credit the ire of campaigners as it was revealed in accounts just days before an unexpected rise in the government's energy price cap and ahead of the budget, which is expected to introduce a string of tax hikes. It's extraordinary that at a time when the tax burden for the UK taxpayers is squeezing ordinary families, ministers are handing tens of millions of pounds to one of the world's most profitable corporations to make a superhero film, says John O'Connell, chief executive of the Taxpayers Alliance. These subsidies should be scrapped or tightly capped. Taxpayers' money should be used to fix public services, not boost the balance sheets of Disney. One of the reasons that Disney, and this is what could potentially be interesting in the next couple of years, one of the reasons that Disney has committed nearly a decade of film production to Pinewood and Shinfield, they don't want to make things here in the U.S. anymore. Disney wants to tell you how awesome and deep blue California liberal they are But when it comes to actually having to pay the sleazy union rates they have to pay in California, Disney is all too fast to have to get the hell out of Dodge and go do stuff in the UK. The UK doesn't really have a cap on the tax credit pool that they have available each and every year. This is why Disney's over there. And Disney apparently really, and I mean really, looted British citizens last year for Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, when I saw the figure, 61 million British pounds, 75 million US dollars. Let me go back and pull this up. What were we told? Somewhat of a lie, right? Because there's always flavor and color in the lies. Deadpool and Wolverine, we were told, had a $200 million production budget. That is twice as much as what Fox, before the Disney acquisition of Fox, spent in 2018, or the movie that came out in 2018, Deadpool 2, which was also roughly double what Fox spent in 2016 to make the original Deadpool movie. So we looked at it and we said, okay, $58 million for a movie that came out in 2016, that then Fox upped the budget because of its huge success, which makes a lot of sense. To go to Deadpool 2, people had to be paid more. Ryan Reynolds had to be paid more. All the people involved, because they made Fox so much money with the first Deadpool movie, had to be paid more. Disney gets a hold of it, and then 6 years later, doubles the budget again. You know what? That's reasonable. Ryan Reynolds, this is his movie. Disney had to have a big hit because Marvel was effectively deader than a freaking doornail at that point. $200 million. How the hell do you have a $75 million film tax credit on a $200 million production? That is completely impossible. Because it is completely impossible. Because Disney didn't spend $200 million. They spent $520 million. And by the time this is over, we're going to find out they spent close to $600 million. Remember, the UK film tax credit is 25% or 25.5% of eligible expenses. You don't get to have a UK film tax credit or a Canadian film tax credit for the money you spend on people like Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy. All the above-the-line stuff, the executive producers. In its latest accounts, the Walt Disney Company filed in the United Kingdom that by October 31st, Halloween of 24, a year ago, 3 months after the Deadpool and Wolverine movie was released in late July, Disney had spent a staggering 418 million British pounds sterling. Not US dollars, British pounds sterling. At the time that Deadpool and Wolverine was released in 2024, there was about $1.25 per British pound, meaning that $418 million was actually closer to 520 million. 530 million US dollars. I've been telling people that the costs for Avengers Doomsday was going to approach $1 billion. I just showed you the Walt Disney Company spent well over $500 million for Deadpool and Wolverine. Do y'all want to bet me again that Doomsday isn't going to be pushing $1 billion or more, which Disney will lose their ass on?
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.